Our next speaker, or speaker number 2, is really shouldn't be here today, but he is, thanks to a dog that saved his life, not once, but 3 times in his youth. Here with a speech titled, Weasel the Great, please welcome Toastmaster Chip Keith.
Thank you. When I was 14, I convinced my father to let me go backpacking through the Oregon wilderness. Well, not exactly alone. I was accompanied by the late, great Weasel. Weasel was born of and made for the mountains. His mother, Kelly, was this gorgeous, sultry, husky-voiced Malamute. My dad, the woodsman, working in the woods one day, not only was he an excellent woodsman, he was also a connoisseur of fine weed. So at the end of the day, he jumps in his car, heads out of the woods home, completely forgetting about Kelly. So Kelly, left to her own devices, finds a pack of wild coyotes, runs with them, has this wild, torrid affair, the progeny of which was Weasel. On the first night of our journey into the mountains, a big storm hit us hard. The next morning, I woke up to find any trace of the trail obliterated, completely washed away. We were officially lost in the wilderness. Now, being the son of a woodsman has its benefits. My father taught me a lot of really good tricks, what to do. For instance, you look at where the moss is growing on a tree. It can tell you your cardinal directions, which way is north. Now, he had some not so great tips on you could use that same moss if you ran out of toilet paper. But the best thing I ever learned from my dad was how to get out of the woods if you were lost. He said, find water, even a trickle, follow it downhill. Sooner or later, you'll find civilization. So, Weasel and I found our trickle of water and started following it downhill. Now, the mountains in Oregon can get pretty steep. Weasel's ahead of me walking along, and I've got this pack on, and I'm lumbering in front of him, behind him. Suddenly, Weasel stops dead, turns sideways, and blocks my path. Now, he's in front of me, so I had to slow down so I didn't fall over. Stopped, actually ran into him, and looked why he had stopped. We were at the edge of a massive cliff. Weasel saved my life. So we found our way around and kept on following the trickle, came a little bit more of a stream, and we found a little cave to spend the night in. It was perfect. Nice, warm, strangely comfortable. The next morning, that night, Weasel was growling. You couldn't pacify him for anything. And I couldn't understand why. The next morning, I get up to do my yoga. Any yoga people in the house? Come on. Yeah, there you go. Well, in Oregon, we have mountain yoga. Some people might recognize this. There's a single pose. It's one of the most important poses you can learn. So here I am doing my mountain yoga. Yeah. So this mountain yoga is called B-52 Bomber for a reason. And I'm in my B-52 Bomber pose, and I look over, and suddenly I realize I'm not the only yoga practitioner in the woods. Next to me is the high score of the last player, a skosh bigger than mine, but chock-a-block full of hairs. I realized in that moment, and now, by the way, if you understand scat or poop on the ground in the mountains, you know you can tell its age by color, smell. how shiny it is. This one was less than 24 hours old. We had spent the night in the den of a mountain lion. Weasels pacing and growling all night probably kept her from coming in. She knew there were two of us. She couldn't get us both. That was save number 2. So we kept on down that stream. It got a little bigger. It got a little wider. Suddenly we found ourselves crossing this big old growth log over a ravine. Of course, I have Weasel go first, and he's whining, are we going to see if it's safe? So Weasel goes across, and I go across, and we keep on going down the stream. It gets bigger. We get further. I knew there was a trail that crossed the stream, and I was bound to find it. So I'm slogging along, and then I hear Weasel, rah, 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 his thing. And I look back, and I'm like, Weasel, come on, we got to get going. And Weasel, rah, 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 rah. He's not budging. So I work my way, and I'm pretty dang tired by this point. I work my way back up to where Weasel is, and there he stood, triumphantly on the trail that I had passed. That, my friends, was save number 3. Shortly after, we get to the campground where my father was patiently waiting to pick us up. And that's the end of our story. Thank you very much.